Rain of Troy Hotline.
Alicia, Michael, what's going on?
We know you have takes. We have takes.
I'm actually surprised that your rant line, rave line, whatever, isn't completely full.
Why can't we just win a game?
Can I blame Michael Castillo for this?
Can I blame Bob Connolly for this?
Could I put on a zebra shirt and just go out there? Scratch, claw, up against the wall.
Can't explain it what I'm feeling right now, guys.
I can't believe it. Let's open up that race line. Woohoo!
Oh, I can't believe USC has hired Lincoln Riley. Oh, yeah.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Rain of Troy Radio, episode 487, coming to you on Monday, June 12th. We are going to talk about the latest in USC football, including the new schedule for 24 and 23, 24 and 25. See, I don't even know the years anymore. 2024 and 2025, the Big Ten schedule is out, minus the dates. We know the opponents. But also the Trojans have added new G5 opponents to future schedules. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about a new stadium plan for the women's soccer and lacrosse team. Play some Mount Rotmore and so much more, including taking your questions here live on YouTube. As always, you can follow us on Twitter at Rain of Troy, like us on Facebook, facebook.com/Rain of Troy. Our email address is rainoftroy@fanside.com. I'm your host, Michael Castillo, and you can follow me on Twitter at MichaelCastFS. I'm joined along with my wonderful co-host here in the Rain of Troy studio in Los Angeles, Alicia D'Artola.
Hello, everybody.
She's Penguin of Troy on Twitter.
This is true.
Yeah.
Big facts.
We are back to talk about the schedule and all that stuff. We had a members-only episode that went up on Friday. Was it Friday? Thursday? Thursday, yeah.
Yes.
Went up on Thursday. So if you are a member, you got to see to see our instant reaction to the Big Ten schedule model being released. Go check that out. It was a fun hour to put together. We definitely want to do more of those. It was like hanging out with our best buds here on YouTube. It was a hell of a lot of fun, and we loved putting it together. So, and if you're not a member, you can join us for $4.99 a month, joining the Rot Squad. Not only do you get bonus episodes every month and members only content here on YouTube, but you get to join the Discord. You get to join the discussion over on Discord and talk with us there as well. $4.99 a month here as a member on YouTube. If you're watching on youtube.com, scroll down below a little bit as it says to join and become a member. If you're on your phone, I think it's a little bit more tricky, so you might have to do it on a browser. But go do that and join us, because those members only episodes are super fun.
Yes. Very, very fun. We love being able to react to news sort of in the moment, and that's what that was. And we're more limited with these live shows in terms of, like, we're scheduled for 5:00 to do these things on a Monday, or when the season begins to do them on a Wednesday or Thursday, whatever we end up doing for the football season. But being able to jump on and just riff about the breaking news is super fun, and we had a really good turnout in the chat, and it was just a whole lot of fun.
Yeah, it was a good time.
Yeah.
And this will be a good time because this episode, of course, is brought to you by DraftKings, and DraftKings has upgraded their sign-up offer for a limited time. Just for you guys, if you're a new user, you can receive $200 in bonus bets by following just 3 simple steps. Create an account, deposit, and then wager $5 on any sports. Whether your first wager wins or loses, you'll still receive the $200 in bonus bets. All you have to do is use the code Reign of Troy in DraftKings here on the screen, Reign of Troy, all one word. When you sign up, the best part is use our code Reign of Troy. Not only gets you the bonus, but it also helps support the podcast as well. Once again, maximize your first bets by using the code Reign of Troy at DraftKings. The offer is available to new customers who are 21 plus and physically present in legal gambling states, which means, unfortunately, not California, but you know, the SC fans are all over the place. You guys are everywhere. The Rotbots are everywhere.
Yeah, when you're traveling for a game and you go to a state that is a legal gambling state, you'll be all set.
There you go. That's a good idea. Please remember to gamble responsibly as always, and check the episode description for the full terms of the offer over at DraftKings. Use the promo code Reign of Troy. Alicia, before we get to the news, we wanted to share one little more thing of podcast news. Next week's show is going to be at a new time. 1 week only time, 4 p.m. Pacific, because we've got a special guest lined up. So it might be an extra long episode. Who knows? We'll see. But 4 p.m. Pacific, mark your calendars now for next Monday, June 19th. We're super excited about it. Do we tell the people who it is, or should we just give hints?
I think we should tell the folks who it is. It's a first time guest, one we wanted to have on the show for a long time, and one who does an outstanding job on their own podcasts.
Yeah, Joe Rogan will be on the episode, and it'll be
not quite.
I'm kidding. It's going to be Chris Trevino from USCFootball.com will join us next week. It'll be super fun. We'll put together a bunch of content, a bunch of new stuff to discuss, and it'll be a grand old time. So join me, Alicia, and Chris next week at 4 p.m. Pacific on Monday, live here on YouTube. And as always, it'll be wherever you listen to your podcast. So if you listen to us on Apple Podcasts, it'll be there as well. But 4 p.m. Pacific is the live stream here on YouTube as well. Alicia, we had a bunch of news to get to, so we'll just get to it, eh? All right, we got to start with the new news to build a new women's soccer and lacrosse stadium for the Trojans. The Women of Troy to open in 2025. Carol Folt says USC's commitment to women in sports is stronger than ever. It's going to be $38 million to build upon McAllister Field. They got a $10 million donation to do this. Here's an excerpt from USC News. Rollinson Stadium will feature an elite natural grass playing surface with a total capacity of 2,500, including spectator viewing decks and social spaces, a state-of-the-art press box, spectator restrooms, a box office, concession stands, and a formal entry plaza. The stadium is to be named after the family of prominent Los Angeles philanthropist Joseph Rollinson. He was close friends with fellow LA philanthropist and home builder Fitz B. Burns, whose namesake charity organization is now run by members of the Rollinson family.
Yeah, this is awesome. USC's USC Women's Soccer is a program that I think is worth certainly investing in. Lacrosse is a sport that's completely foreign to me, but I'm glad that the lacrosse team is being well supported here as well.
That's the official sport of Canada. Come on.
And I am not Canadian, although I love poutine. So, bring it on, bring on all the lacrosse. But no, it's good to see something done with McAllister Field. I went to a few soccer games over there while I was a student, and I felt like it was very not sufficient for what was needed. So it's exciting to see them building up. And it's also a sign of a USC continuing to build up infrastructure for sports in the way that they should. We want to see them build up these programs and be able to win national titles in every sport that USC is involved in, and being able to use land that was already sort of being used, but then upgrading it. We've seen that with the track facilities. We're seeing that with the now soccer facilities. We want to continue to see it with baseball facilities, which we think will be happening around the weird Olympics.
The Olympic stuff is going to be weird, but because I think the swim stadium for the Olympics is going to be a temporary stadium built at Dato Field.
That's what I remember is some temporary facility is going to be up at Dato Field during the Olympics, and my feel was always that after the Olympics they're going to be able to then start fresh and get upgraded facilities for the baseball program as well. So sort of more of a long haul, but this is what you need to be doing in order to stay competitive in college sports, and that's exciting.
Yeah. This is a good sign, and I think it shows SC's willingness to invest in facilities, which is something that we know that Lincoln Riley has called for. I think that is probably something that we're going to see at some point down the line. I think the interesting part is, what is the timeline on that stuff going to be with the Olympics coming around, and where are they going to be able to put stuff like that? Like, this made sense because the land was there.
Yeah.
And so it made sense to just go all in and give the women's soccer team they've already had a place at McAllister Field, but like, this makes it even better. Cause I always, I thought it was nice when they played at the Coliseum. Like, it was, it's nice to celebrate them with games at the Coliseum, but now they can have their big games in their own space that is like nice and perfectly purpose built for them. Yeah, like, it's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Awesome for them. So
yes.
Purpose built is the phrase of the night here as we get to the other big news. The big news that everyone has come to talk about. The unveiling of the future schedules for the USC Trojans. This includes the Big Ten schedule model for the Trojans getting to the conference in 2024 and 2025. The Big Ten came out with this last week, and they are calling it the Flex Protect Plus schedule model. Yeah,
which we joked in the
members
only show. Sounds like a brand of or a line of hefty trash bags or
something like that. Yes. But basically, here's the plan. The Big Ten, over the course of every 2 years, every team in the conference, or 16 teams in the conference, they have a 9-game football schedule, right? You will feature your 3 of your games will be against a set number of home and homes over that 2-year stretch. The remaining 6 games will cycle between the next 12 teams. So you'll play the rest of the 12 opponents either home or away, thus guaranteeing that every Big Ten team will play each other at least once every 2 years, and you will host every Big Ten team at least once every 4 years. I think, just on principle, I think that's exactly what a schedule should be. I know in the Pac-12, it's been round robin since 2006. Everyone has played against each other ever since the Pac-12 went to a 9-game schedule back in the Pac-10 days in 2006. So SC is kind of like used to playing everybody. Now there will be skips, just like there is in the Pac-12, but just like in the Pac-12, you will host everybody once every 4 years at least.
Yeah, and I really like this schedule too, because the way that they protected rivals was to only protect the most essential rival.
Yes.
So USC is protected with UCLA and nobody else. And so the other 2 home and home sort of locked in will change as you go.
Right.
But it's nice that you play everyone every other year. So even though you might have sort of budding rivalries with other teams, those are never going to like die out, because you're still going to play each other every other year. And while it might be disappointing to sort of lose some year in year out rivalry sort of experiences for some schools, those matchups don't go away. You just skip a year. It's like USC skipping Notre Dame in 2020. It just, it happened, and you move on.
Yeah.
So I enjoy it. I like it. I like that it's a schedule that prioritizes competitiveness while also finding a fair sort of level of balance, where it doesn't feel like anyone's schedule is ever going to be terribly unbalanced. Now, you can never know, because you just never know when people are going to be good and when people are going to be bad.
Right.
But the setup feels like it's built towards general balance insofar as you can plan that far.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is, in terms of the rivalries, it doesn't seem like they're forced, because the protected set of 3. Okay, months ago we talked about the 3-6-6 plan, right? Which was every team would have 3 protected rivals, and then you would play 6 teams, and then you play the next 6 the next year, which is essentially the same concept,
except without the flex.
Yeah. So there's 15 other teams in the conference, right? So you have 3 protected. You play 6 one year and the other 6 the next year. This is essentially the same model, except those 3 games that are locked in are not locked in forever. It's locked in for a 2-year stretch only. So this allows teams like Iowa, who have 3 permanent rivals, to have those 3 permanent rivals just be there every year. And it allows teams like SC and UCLA, who are new to the Big Ten, to go and not be shoehorned into having a rivalry with Northwestern and Rutgers because
because somebody had to arbitrarily decide that that's who USC was going to be partnered up with, and who the heck would know why. It also allows, like, weirdly, Penn State to not have a protected rival, because they're in this weird sort of ether where they're like they're like the second or third rival to everybody who has a bigger rival. So yeah, you're working with some weird scheduling quirks that you had to sort of find a way to bridge the gap between teams like Iowa and teams like Penn State, and it feels like they've done that. So bravo to the Big Ten for finding a solution to what was a complex problem. But that now sets up a really fun looking schedule for USC.
Yeah, and speaking of complex problems, there could be complex problems. As Dan in the chat points out, True Madness will be the tiebreakers for choosing the top 2 teams in the conference. Yes, that could be a huge issue, because the conference will no longer have divisions, which is another reason why they were able to have this sort of schedule. There are no more divisions. It's going to be a free-for-all. It's just going to be a full 16-team table, and whoever is at the top of the table, the top 2 teams, are going to play in the championship game. So I think the tiebreaker situations will be interesting. I didn't see those. If those are published, I didn't see them. But it's going to be interesting to see how that all breaks out, because as we saw with last year in the Pac-12, like, they get crazy sometimes.
Yes, they will certainly get crazy. They will certainly be debated, and we'll have to pore over those eventually. But I do think that when you're moving into an era of the 12-team playoff, I think this is what's best for the health of the conference, because now the conference championship game is no longer a play-in game for any conference at this point. Like, even in the Pac-12, you wouldn't see it as a play-in game, because theoretically your second bet, the team that loses that game isn't going to get left out if they're sort of ranked highly enough going in. So now the conference title game can just be a battle for the conference championship and that trophy and those bragging rights. And if that's going to be the case, then yes, just take the 2 best teams in the conference by whatever measure you determine is going to be the best relative record and tiebreakers and all that kind of stuff. Let them play the championship game, get that out of the way, and then go on to the playoff. Like, I think it works out that way. Divisions are always tricky, because one side is always going to be unbalanced, especially in a conference like the Big Ten that was never going to put Michigan and Ohio State in separate divisions if they weren't going to be forced to play each other every year. So no, the division thing makes a lot of sense.
In different divisions during the old
Leaders and Legends.
Leaders and Legends
era.
Yeah, they had the zipper format.
Yeah. So it works for me, and that is a complicated. But all scheduling is going to be a complication, right? So there was always going to be a situation where a tiebreaker was going to have to determine who goes to the Big Ten title game.
Yeah.
You can't avoid that.
Yeah, and just like with last season, now there is the chance, and this upcoming season, that SC has a chance to play UCLA twice. That is possible. So what does this all mean for USC exactly? Well, so the 3 protected teams for the next 2 years, or the first 2 years of this model, 2024 and 2025, it's the first one, obviously USC's fully protected rival is UCLA, as it should be, obviously. And then the other 2 are going to be Penn State and Wisconsin, meaning that SC will play the remaining 6 teams in 2025 and the remaining in 2024 as well. So here is the schedule, putting it up here on the screen over on YouTube. The Trojans in 2024, in the non-con, of course, we know that SC plays at home against San Jose State and Notre Dame. and they get LSU in a neutral site game in Las Vegas. But the Big Ten schedule will be at home against Michigan, at home against Iowa, at home against Illinois and Wisconsin, and road games at Penn State, Maryland, Northwestern, and Purdue, along with the road game, quote unquote, road game at the Coliseum against UCLA.
Well, at the Rose Bowl against UCLA.
Yeah, you know what I mean. Yes.
Yeah, this is a very difficult schedule, and I've said this on Twitter and in other spaces. That doesn't mean it's a bad thing. I think that in the long run, USC aspires to be a national title winning program and to have a national title winning roster. And to me, this looks like a proving ground more than a you couldn't possibly make it through the schedule. No, if you make it through the schedule, then you are competing for a national championship.
Yeah.
That means when you go to the playoff, you don't go to the playoff with a 1% chance of maybe getting an upset victory in the semifinals, and then go to the national title game and get your pants blown off by Georgia. If you make it through this schedule, you have proven your worth. You have proven that you are capable of competing with those teams. Personally, I love it. At the same time, this is not an easy schedule to deal with. Just between the out of conference matchups with LSU and Notre Dame, on top of the new Big Ten matchups, which are difficult on two fronts. Number one, you're dealing with adding a team like Michigan to your schedule, which is Michigan is just a better program than any program that the Pac-12 has to give you in terms of their ceiling. You're adding Wisconsin, who you and I think both think will be a challenging team to face under Matt Rule.
Yeah.
You're adding no, not Matt Rule. Sorry,
Matt Rule. He's in Nebraska. As he plays them in 2025. Spoiler alert.
So why am I blanking on the head coach at Wisconsin?
The point is, Wisconsin's always good, right?
Yes, Wisconsin's always good, and the teams that you face, like Purdue, Maryland, Northwestern in particular, with Pat Fitzgerald, well-coached team, but also an away trip, an additional long away trip. Teams like Maryland and Purdue, it's your sort of first time you're feeling each other out for those road games. Those might not be the most difficult opponents, but it's a new world for you, and there are potential pitfalls there. So it's
what West Lafayette is actually French for Corvallis. So
I mean, this is true. USC fans know exactly what you mean when you say, "Oh, thank you, Robin Murdy." It's Luke Fickell. Luke Fickell at Wisconsin. Yeah, I think Luke Fickell's going to do a really good job at Wisconsin. And Matt Rule at Nebraska. The coaching changes that have happened in the Big Ten have all feel like good hires. That doesn't mean that they're all going to be good hires, for the record. Half of these guys could end up failing, but you feel like those programs are at least trying to be ambitious, which is always a sign that a team might be ultimately difficult when you face them. But yeah, it's those road trips to like a place like Purdue. Purdue has a reputation now. They're giant killers.
Yeah.
They don't expect to win necessarily, but they know they have a chance to knock you off, and they take pride in knowing that they can do that to you. So yeah, feels like it's
defending Big Ten West champs, Purdue, by the way.
Purdue.
I think the interesting thing about the 2024 schedule is that while the Trojans do get Michigan and Wisconsin and Purdue, and Penn State, and Purdue, and those are and Iowa's always a tough beat.
Yeah.
SC knows that firsthand back in 2019. I think that if you were given all of these opponents, LSU, Iowa, Michigan, Wisconsin, Notre Dame, Penn State, everybody on here, and you were told, okay, make this the most favorable possible, and you have to have one neutral site game, 5 road games, and 6 home games. Isn't this exactly the layout that you make? With the exception of you might swap Penn State for Michigan, maybe, and play Michigan on the road and Penn State at home instead, just because Penn State is a louder environment than the Big House. But like that's splitting hairs. Like as difficult of a schedule as this will be in 2024. At the same time, you don't have to go to Death Valley. You only get one of the scary big blue blood adjacent programs in the Big Ten on the road in Penn State. One of your road games is against UCLA, so you really only have four Big Ten road games away from home. And 3 of those are against the bottom tier of the Big Ten in Maryland, Northwestern, and Purdue. Northwestern is going to be the interesting one because we were talking about it offline. Alicia, I haven't seen anyone else mention this, although I haven't been on Twitter much. Nobody knows what's going on with Northwestern. In the sense of where they're playing next year. They are going to start the renovations at Kyle Field in 2024. They are currently sort of homeless for 2024.
At least as far as we can tell. If anyone's seen an update on that.
Yes, correct us if we're wrong here. You know how to email us, random@fanside.com. But there's a chance that they could play at Wrigley Field. Like a very good chance. They're going to play a game at Wrigley later on this year, sort of as a test case. I have my doubts if Wrigley could work. Like you got to be able to convert Wrigley on like a 2-day, like with you have to do it in like a couple of days, considering that in September the Cubs will be playing home games. Surely not in October because the franchise is a disaster. But that's a whole side plot.
Yeah, but the Cubs would like to think that they need their stadium in October.
Yes,
their ballpark in October.
Yes, but if that game is at Wrigley, oh my God, can you imagine that?
That is the pinnacle of shut up and take my money. Road trips for 2024. That's a lot of conversations we've been having. I'm sure everyone's been having these conversations of like, which road trips do you want to do? Like you gotta go on a Big Ten road trip now. If Northwestern is playing their home games at Wrigley Field in 2024.
Oh my God. Yes,
there
I want in.
is nothing that could stop us from going.
No, like we've talked about it. Like Penn State is the one that we want to go to next year.
How wild would it would be kind of funny.
But if it's Wrigley, it's Northwestern.
Yeah. It would be pretty funny if my first trip to Wrigley Field was for a football game.
That's depressing when we think about it. We need to change that. Come on.
Yeah.
Although the franchise is a dumpster fire, I'm not sure that you want to, enjoy that. Yeah. Anyways, let's go to 2025. Alicia, you might notice something interesting at the beginning here, but we'll save that for a couple minutes. The 2025 schedule, of course, sort of the inverse of those 3 protecteds. So SC gets UCLA at home instead of on the road. SC gets Penn State at home instead of on the road. And then has to go and play at Wisconsin instead of hosting Wisconsin in 2025. And then the 6 other teams that SC gets, 3 home games in the Big Ten against Michigan State, Nebraska, and Indiana. And the 3 road games are Ohio State, Minnesota, and Rutgers. And once again, I think the conference is sort of like worked out in SC's favor in the sense that yes, it is scary that SC has the schedule where they have 3 road games against Ohio State, Wisconsin, and Notre Dame. That is terrifying in general. Those are 3 like top 10 places in the country you never really want to play. The Notre Dame game is completely SC's own choice for having a rivalry with Notre Dame. But it's not like SC has to play at Penn State and at Ohio State in the same season. They don't have to play at Michigan and at Ohio State in the same season. They get Ohio State the same time they have to play at Rutgers. So this sort of like really balances out kind of nicely that SC gets Ohio State on the road in 2025, Michigan at home in 2024.
Yeah, this road schedule is definitely more challenging in 2025. But on the flip side, like you said, like the home schedule is less. I mean, is sort of just eased up a little bit depending on what Nebraska and Michigan State look like in the end. Like again, when we're talking about 2025,
This
now
is
we're
year 2 of Matt Rule, by the way. No, year 3 of Matt Rule.
Yeah, and this is like, is Mel Tucker even the head coach at Michigan State? Is James Franklin the head coach at Penn State? We're gonna have a conversation about who the head coaches of USC's other out of conference games, home games that season are. It gets harder and harder to sort of project like how difficult will it be to play any of these teams.
Alicia,
yes,
I hate to stop you. I have looked up Matt Rule. Matt Rule, year 3 at Temple. He inherited a team that was very bad, right?
Yes.
Year 3 at Temple, 10-4, 7-1 in conference.
Yeah.
Year 3 at Baylor, 11-3, 8-1 in conference.
If Matt Rule is
so if Matt Rule does the Matt Rule things, 2025 Nebraska will be good.
Yes. Well, that's again why we're gonna have to find out, and that's the difficulty of looking at the 2025 schedule as like a reality at this point.
Yeah.
But I would agree with you. It feels a little bit balanced. You're gonna have to play somebody of Ohio State or Michigan on the road eventually. like you're gonna have to go to the big house eventually. You're gonna have to go to Nebraska eventually. You're gonna have to go to all of these teams within the first 4 years. So like, it's all just about where the matchups come. And UCLA ended up in a position where they're gonna play Michigan and Ohio State in 2024, and they're going to have to go to the horseshoe in 2024 and host Michigan. I think it's that way.
They also have to play Georgia one of those years too, which really
like,
fun.
Like UCLA's schedule is difficult, but also playing Ohio State and Michigan in the same year, I'm pretty sure that means UCLA will get a year where they don't play either of them. I'm pretty sure neither of them are one of their protected rivals. So like,
yeah, in 2025, UCLA doesn't play Michigan or Ohio State.
So like,
they host Georgia.
Yeah.
And they play at Penn State, at Nebraska, at Michigan State.
Yeah. Well, okay. So then that is potentially a really, really fun schedule for you at UCLA. But like, again, on paper, if you say there's a year when you're not playing Michigan or Ohio State, you've then taken an advantage in that year as opposed to the year before when you had to play both. So like, again, these
they also have to play at USC. I don't know if you knew that one.
Yeah. I mean, shocker. But yeah, I think, I think either way, you're going to have your pluses and minuses in the schedule, and you just have to play the teams that are in front of you. And it's just going to be exciting from the fan perspective to get to play new teams, to get to travel to new places, to get to welcome new fan bases to the Coliseum as well. So,
yeah, we will see what happens in 2024 and 2025. The interesting thing is, I think in terms of what this means for USC, 2024, the first year without Caleb Williams, we assume he's going to go pro. He would be crazy not to at this point. Obvious number 1 pick in the 2024 NFL drafts. But SC also has a bunch of other juniors who are probably set to potentially go after this season. Your Mario Williamses, your Kalen Bullocks. There's a bunch of guys who could end up going, and SC could have a mass exodus after the 2023 if the season goes well, obviously. Which means SC goes into the Big Ten those first 2 seasons sort of rebuilding per se. But I would argue that there is no more rebuilding because look at what Lincoln Riley did at Oklahoma. When he was at the peak of his powers, there was no rebuilding. It was just reloading every single year.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, given what the transfer portal is, and given how he was able to take SC and give them an 11-1 regular season last year, after a year in which SC was god-awful and had a roster that had no business winning 11 games, and then turning them into a program that could win 11 games with the talent that he went out and got in the transfer portal. Yeah, I don't think there's going to be necessarily a letdown. And if Lincoln Riley is the coach that SC fans want him to be and think that he is, then he can instantly reload for 24 and 25. And that's what Pete Carroll did too. And that's what Georgia's done. That's what Alabama's done. When you are at the highest of levels, there are no years in which you take off. Like, even look at Kyle Whittingham at Utah. Like, he's reached the point to where there are no step back years too, right? Like, that's what elite coaches do. They prevent the step back year, the
Yes.
reload year, the rebuilding year.
Well, and that's we saw that with Pete Carroll, and you've seen that with Nick Saban, and Kirby Smart is building a program to be built like that.
Right.
You might have a year where you have some growing pains because you have
you might have a year where you're maybe not as infallible.
Yeah,
but you also have a 12-game playoff now.
Yeah,
a 12-team
playoffs. Don't talk about playoffs. You kidding me?
So long as you're getting better throughout the season, and that's what Pete Carroll did so well, is he peaked at the end of the season every year and made sure that USC was competitive. You have to be able to do that. But like, again, I guess this just goes back to, like, this is why you hire someone like Lincoln Riley with a proven track record of success. And, I think Lincoln Riley I was just on the Quack 12 podcast previewing USC's roster, and had a long conversation with Hythloday over there about Lincoln Riley and how he's still a very young coach. Young in terms of age, and also in terms of experience as being a head coach or a coach at all. And he still has a lot of stuff to learn, but like, that's why it's so exciting to get on the ground, not on the ground floor with Lincoln Riley, because obviously he was already an elite coach. But like, USC, theoretically, you hire Lincoln Riley, you pay him the money you're paying him, you give him the keys to the car, because you presume he's in it for the long haul.
Right.
And the only thing that sort of steps in that way is the call of the NFL. But like, for right now, it doesn't feel like that's something that he values, because if he did, I think he'd already have a job in the NFL. So you get to sort of go for the long haul. Like, you hire Lincoln Riley for the next 10 years.
Right.
And the whole point is for him to have a program that's competitive year in and year out, regardless of what schedule looks like, regardless of what of who you lose to the NFL. And if any coach was equipped to find a new quarterback, like Lincoln Riley has proven that
he's that guy.
Yeah. Every time he lost a quarterback, he replaced him with a very, very good quarterback.
That's the thing. You can look at this right now and sit here and say, well, 2024, that's going to be the year that Malachi Nelson's going to be the quarterback.
If he's good enough.
Yeah, only if he's good enough. And that's not like doubting that he will be. That's more so looking back at Lincoln Riley's track record. He replaced Baker Mayfield, who was, statistically, arguably one of the greatest quarterbacks in the history of the game, with Kyler Murray, who he got out as a transfer the year. Mind you, he got him the year before, but he replaced Kyler Murray after one season with Jalen Hurts, who was a transfer, who came in, grad transfer, didn't have to sit out a year from Alabama. So, and he brings in Caleb Williams at USC.
He replaces Jalen Hurts with Spencer Rattler, and then he boldly replaces Spencer Rattler with Caleb Williams.
Right.
Before the NFL takes Spencer Rattler away.
Rattler is really the only outlier, because he was the one that he recruited straight out of high school and sat a year and all that stuff.
And the thing about Rattler is, like, it's not like he was a bad quarterback. He just wasn't like as ridiculously good as the other ones that came before, or the one that replaced him. Like that's the thing. Lincoln Riley knows good quarterback play, and he knows what a good quarterback looks like, and he's willing to he will find one in the transfer portal and recruiting.
Rattler got replaced by a guy who won the Heisman.
Yes, literally, yes. So, if there's one thing you can have faith in, it's that Lincoln Riley will figure out a way to replace Caleb Williams. Will the next quarterback at USC be as good as Caleb Williams? I'll be honest with you, probably not. Caleb Williams looks like an absolute generational quarterback that is like capable of doing anything, but you never know. Like,
but the one thing I know, maybe SC will never have a quarterback as good as Caleb Williams, but I think that that might not matter if they produce as much as he does.
Yeah.
And you look back at those Oklahoma quarterbacks. Was Jalen Hurts at Oklahoma as good as Baker Mayfield? No. Did he produce as much as Baker Mayfield did? Yes.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly.
And all of those guys were essentially elite because of their production. And Murray won the Heisman. Baker Mayfield won the Heisman. So, I think if you do that, if you produce, and we talked about Caleb Williams' numbers last year, as good as they were, especially with the metrics, when you talk about like what he did outside of the pocket, what he did on third down, what he did with guys in his face against the rush and all that stuff, he was top 5 in just about every category, top, number 1, pretty much most of those things. The traditional numbers weren't completely unbeatable.
Mm-hmm.
He can go out there this year and throw for more touchdowns and throw for more yards, certainly have a better passer rating, like
better completion percentage.
Yeah, those numbers weren't necessarily revolutionary. And so that's why I think the SC, at least production-wise, can absolutely match that going forward. Let's talk about the other news that came out from last week about schedules. SC has added some G5 opponents to future schedules. This includes Nevada in the 2027 schedule. They will play on September 11th, the Coliseum. The Trojans 5-0 all time, never lost to Nevada. The Wolfpack have been beaten pretty badly by SC, but all of those games came in the 20s, the 1920s. And the Trojans have not played Nevada since their 66-0 win at the Coliseum in 1929.
That's pretty wild, by the way. Like, I would have thought that USC and Nevada would have gotten together for an out-of-conference game.
Well, SC does not like to play teams who are further west than them. And as we know, Reno, Nevada is further west than Los Angeles. You don't believe it? Look it up on a map.
My brain doesn't accept that.
Let's talk about the other game, though. USC has added Georgia Southern. Yes, Georgia Southern, the Golden Eagles, to the 2025 schedule, September 6th, 2025, 2 years from now. Be the first ever meeting between the Trojans and Georgia Southern. Georgia Southern, yes, the team coached by Clay Helton. This means USC's 2025 schedule, as it stands right now, will be against Lane Kiffin's Ole Miss and Clay Helton's Georgia Southern, weeks 1 and 2 at the Coliseum, back-to-back.
You could not write this stuff. You really could not write this stuff. It is outstanding, just schedule drama potential. Ole Miss. Who'd have thunk that Ole Miss and Georgia Southern would have such dramatic ties to USC? I love it. I think doing a solid to Georgia Southern with Clay Helton as their head coach by scheduling this meeting, which is sure to give a certain amount of kickback to Georgia Southern, is ultimately a good thing. I personally think it will be nice to see Clay Helton come back to the Coliseum. I do not trust the USC fan base to handle this maturely.
Well, so I look at this 3 ways. One, it's hilarious. It's utterly hilarious that SC is going to go out and play Lane Kiffin and Clay Helton back to back. Especially Clay Helton in this way is hilarious. I'm also completely over it because it's going to be such a talking point, and it shouldn't be. But at the same time, if you watched our members only pod, I said I was saving my Clay Helton take for this. Here you go. Clay Helton's not going to be the coach of Georgia Southern in 2025. And there's one simple reason. Because why would he be? Clay Helton is one of 2 people. He's either the terrible coach that everyone thinks that he is, or a lot of people think that he is, and he won't last there until that long. Or he is a coach who was not good enough for USC, but he's good enough to be somewhere, and that somewhere is probably better than Georgia Southern. And if that's the case, then he will have a different job in 2025. I don't see any way that he's still there, because if he has another winning season like he did this past season, where he shows any sort of glimpse of promise, somebody is going to hire him. Somebody at a school better than Georgia Southern will hire him because, well, he won a Rose Bowl at SC. He won a Pac-12 championship. Like, they'll start to look at those things, and then we'll look at what he did at Georgia Southern, and then he won't be at Georgia Southern anymore, and he'll be at what's a school that's better than Georgia Southern but isn't Alabama? I don't know. South Carolina. You know what I mean? Like, he'll be at
Ole Miss.
He'll be at UCF. I don't know, something somewhere. Or he just won't work out because everyone said that it was a weird fit for him to go there, which it was. And to his credit, it wasn't a bad fit in year one, given how everything worked out, even though it looked like a bad fit on the surface, given that Clay Helton is a, West Coast offense guy, not from the West Coast, but a West Coast offense guy, kind of. Wants to throw the football around versus Georgia Southern traditionally being a triple option offense. So, yeah, either it's not going to pan out or he's going to be somewhere else. He's not going to be there. And I think you can kind of say the same thing with Lane Kiffin. But I feel less about that with Lane Kiffin because the jobs that I think that Lane Kiffin would have left for have kind of already opened already. Like, I could have seen Lane Kiffin going to Auburn and he didn't. Could have seen Lane Kiffin going to LSU and he didn't. The only other one that I can see him leaving Ole Miss for starts and ends with an A.
And that would be
that timeline is who knows
wild.
When that one's coming.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who knows when he's going to Arizona.
Yeah. I here's where I stand. I think it is more likely for Clay Helton to be the head coach at Georgia Southern than Lane Kiffin to be the head coach at Ole Miss in 2025. Number one, because Kiffin has already been at Ole Miss for a few years now. So
yeah,
like the clock on whether or not he would leave or get fired or whatever happens is already sort of ticking a little bit further ahead than where Helton is. I disagree with the idea that Clay Helton will definitely either have been fired or gotten a new gig. Because I think that when it comes down to it, like, Clay Helton is very medium. And I think the prospect of mediumness at Georgia Southern. Now, I was just looking at their sort of history, and they do have a richer history.
They have a much richer history than anyone thinks that they do, because they were in lower levels and like dominant. They were like a dominant program.
Yes, but like that's what I wonder. Since the move up from
does that change their expectations?
That's
a bit,
well,
maybe?
so they moved up in 2015, right?
Yeah, they're a lot like Appalachian State in that sense.
And they've had one 10-win season since then. So like I don't know that Clay Helton needs to be racking up 10-win seasons at Georgia Southern in order to keep his job. If he started racking up 10-win seasons at Georgia Southern, I agree. He would get a job at a more prestigious university, I think, potentially. But at the same time, like I said, Clay Helton's very medium. I think he's probably, in his future, is probably a couple of 8-5 seasons coming up. And, he just has to sort of survive to the point of getting to 2025.
Yeah, I would say 8-5 at Georgia Southern could still get you promoted.
I mean, maybe, I don't know. Things are weird, but
you don't think Houston would like look at him and be like, we'll take him.
I mean, it's certainly possible, but also my perception of Clay Helton is also just different from what any of those programs would be hiring him. So
sure.
I get it.
I'm just saying, if you're a booster at Houston,
you don't mind the idea.
You could be persuaded by, well, he did win a Rose. I mean, he
won a Pac-12. He won a Rose Bowl.
Look at this, Jimbo. It looks like he did win a Rose Bowl, and he won one of those Pac-10s.
He has
you could be convinced.
He had a record of 46-24 at USC. Like, that's not bad.
West Texas Mike says, "You read what the president of Houston said about the Kurds." I'm just throwing Houston out there. Let's say Memphis.
Yeah.
Anywhere that is slightly ahead.
Yeah.
I
agree with the general sense that like there is a very good chance we get to 2025 and those matchups are not as juicy as they look today.
Sure.
That is very possible. I could like Clay Helton survived year after year at USC.
Anyways.
Like I don't know.
All right. Well, we're getting there's a buzzer going off over here in the studio that we've said the name a little bit too much. I mean, we've been told before that you can't say the name on the pod anymore. It's like Voldemort. Shoot, I mean that person we can't say. So yeah. Before we get to the mailbag, let's get to Mount Rotmore. We're gonna just roll with that name until someone's got a better name. Mount Rotmore. That's what we're doing. Last week we unveiled Mount Rotmore, which is the Mount Rushmore of USC things, but Mount Rotmore. Alicia, we're going to do this one quick before we get to the mailbag. What's your 4 dream Big Ten road trips? Your Mount Rotmore Big Ten road dream trips, things, mobobs.
I think 3 of these 4 are not debatable. And I think this is probably true. It's the Horseshoe, Ohio State, it's the Big House, Michigan, and it's Happy Valley going to Penn State. Like, I think that you can't not have those on your Mount Rotmore, in terms of like dream Big Ten road trips.
Mm-hmm.
My 4th is the 4th is very difficult. I ultimately went with Nebraska, simply because Nebraska fans have a reputation for being absolutely incredible.
Mm-hmm. Nebraska fans will tell you that, yes.
The Nebraska fans who came out to USC when they had the road trip in 2006?
2006, yeah.
Yeah. I heard nothing but great things about what a treat it was to have Nebraska present. And I think it would be fun to go to Lincoln and sort of be in and around Nebraska program.
Yeah. I think Nebraska's on that list, but I would put Iowa above Nebraska. And
I know a lot of people would say Iowa just to do the Kinnick Wave, which I think is absolutely a good reason. Absolutely a good reason to want that road trip.
Yes. I also think that Iowa's always like teams go to die in Iowa, and plus you can go to the field.
I don't want to go to die in Iowa.
No, but like I think it's got mystique now that Lincoln used to, and Lincoln hasn't had that mystique in 20 years.
Yeah, that's fair. But
so my dream Big Ten road trips. Yes, I got the big 3 that you said: Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State. Absolutely, and I'm going to throw Wisconsin in there, Wisconsin, so we can get our cheese curds. Have some beer cheese.
Yeah, I
all
am
those things.
Definitely on board.
Jump around
with the food.
Yeah.
Situation that would
anything
be
but an 11 a.m. kickoff. God, anything but that. That's what I want to avoid.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's go to the old mailbag, shall we?
You've got mail.
All right, let's go to Fighting on MC says, what are the chances that Caleb gets Heisman number 2 in 2023?
If I had to put a percent on it, I'll say 10%. And that is not because Caleb Williams isn't going to be fantastic in 2023. Just that in order to repeat as a Heisman winner, you have to overcome the expectations of the offseason, literally be perfect from day 1 to the end of the season because you are judged more harshly. And also people just like voting for new things. Like there's always going to be somebody else who's just sort of a newer figure that people turn to, and that they aren't going to be as dissecting every little thing that they do because they might not see them coming. So yeah, I just think it's low. There's a reason people don't win 2 Heismans in a row most years, and there's a reason it hasn't happened since Archie Griffin.
Yeah.
Back in a very different era of voting.
Yeah, I will say that it's going to be extremely difficult because he's competing against himself. Here's where I think the odds are higher, and I think that he has a good chance, probably as good as anyone has ever had a chance to win 2. I don't think that, like, we're talking about production, I think there is a lot more production that Caleb Williams can have this upcoming season.
Yes.
When you look at the sheer numbers, yes, 42 touchdowns, 5 picks, looks very good, and that's incredible. But
the
you look
picks is the issue because
I think he's
very
going to throw
good
more
chance
picks.
he's going to throw more picks.
Yes. But I think he could throw more touchdowns. I think he could throw for more yards. You look at the passer rating last year is at 168.5.
Yeah, way better than that.
That broke SC's record by like percentage points, which tells you like he's got a lot of ways to go in terms of like his production could be better. And you look at 2018, Kyler Murray under Lincoln Riley, his passer rating was 199.2.
Yeah.
199.2. And so, yes, I think there absolutely we could see more of that. We could see more or less of him running. If he runs more than those, he could have more running stats, and that could help him because I think that he didn't run as much in the beginning part of the season as he did towards the end. But also, if he runs less to save his legs, he's going to throw more. And then when we talk about competing against yourself, what does that mean? Comparing his numbers this year to last year. And I think he can better all those numbers that he had from last year, which will make it look better. He just will probably end up throwing more picks because throwing only 5 is like that's crazy. If he does that again, it'll be insane. Let's get to the next question from Aaron Murray. Was the Georgia Southern game scheduled before Clay Helton got the job there or after? After. It just got released last week, and Clay Helton's been there for, a year and a half now.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, so that's been something that's been there. Cameron from Frisco, Texas says, who do you have winning, the Nuggets or the Heat? Is Michael optimistic or pessimistic of the Panthers coming back to beat Vegas in hockey? Go Knights, go. Probably pessimistic. This looks like absolutely is Vegas' time, especially with the long layoff for the Panthers. I think this is going to be Vegas' time. Also, as much as I might not want the Knights to win, everybody's saying that they are winning this too early. You are insane. Remember, the Marlins won in their 4th season in 97. The D-backs won in their 4th season in 2001. This is like Vegas' 6th season or something like that. They're fine. This is not too early to win as an expansion team. So, hey, the Blues, the St. Louis Blues went to the Stanley Cup Finals their first 3 seasons ever. And the Knights didn't do that, albeit there weren't 12 teams in the league at that point. But yeah, who do you have for Nuggets and Heat, Alicia?
I got Nuggets closing out tonight.
Both playing tonight, which is weird, right?
Yeah, it's a little weird.
They both could end tonight, which seems
they both
really
can
weird.
end tonight. Yeah, trust me, I am aware of that and not excited. I would appreciate if at least one of them held off, just for my own sanity as somebody who is working. Yes, I think the Nuggets are going to close it out. I think the Heat have shown a ton of resilience, and I think I wouldn't rule out the possibility of them winning Game 5 in Denver, but at the same time, the Nuggets are just a better team, and in every game from here on out, if you ask me who do I have, I'm just going to say the Nuggets because they're just the better team, and that much is clear. So, yeah, it'll be the Nuggets. Just if not today, then Game 6.
Yeah, last question. Ulao says, how long till SC starts having a great presence at these Big Ten conference games? Because they will be filling up half the Collie. I think we've talked about this before. The biggest winner of all of the SC going to the Big Ten is the USC alumni group of Chicago. Because now they're strong. They're very strong.
Yes.
If you've ever been to a Notre Dame game,
Yeah.
there's a bunch of activities that happen all week, and they put it together. The Navy Pier pep rally, all that stuff. They're going to have so many of those things to do more. I do think it's easier to do it when you do once every 2 years and now have to do 3 or 4 a year. It might be difficult. But yes, I think there's going to be a lot of SC fans traveling, just maybe not in the crazy numbers that the Big Ten schools will be because they're only coming to California once a year. The schedule is the way it's worked out. Every team comes to play SC or UCLA every other year. They don't play both on the road, at least in the first 2 years. So that could change later on, but as it stands now, I think more fans will come than SC will go because just your numbers, right?
Yeah, for sure. But I also think USC fans travel pretty well when it's a big game. Like I don't know,
the Texas game was huge.
I don't know that USC fans are going to travel to Rutgers or Maryland. But at the same time, I think for the big games, USC fans will absolutely travel. Just like you said, the Texas game was huge. I think we'll see USC fans travel to Vegas for the LSU game. We know that USC fans are willing to travel if you give them a reason to travel.
Yeah.
And even like I said, even Rutgers and Maryland, it's not like you can't make a trip of those trips. So
yeah, when SC played Virginia in 2008, there was a bunch of people there.
Yeah. So I think don't underestimate that from the USC perspective, because it's different when you're talking about going to a Pac-12 team that you've played, for decades, and you've been there a million times and you're sort of used to it. The novelty of it will be interesting.
Yeah. We're going to wrap up there. If you're joining us here in the chat, we love you guys. It's always great to talk in the chat. Be sure to like the stream. It helps grow the channel. And subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. Tell your friends where you can find us. You know where to find us. Tell your friends where to find us. Also, join the Rot Squad and our membership on YouTube. $4.99 a month, you get bonus content, including our live reaction show to the Big Ten schedule that we put out last week, which you can go watch that, plus the other bonus episodes that have already been put out. And as always, this episode is brought to you by DraftKings. Use the code Reign of Troy to do everything you want to do there. And the details are in the description. And it was bet $5, get $20 of bonus bets. There you
go. If you wager $5 on any sport, you get $200 in bonus bets.
Yeah, that's a deal. There you go. So, all right, we will see you guys next week, 4 p.m. Pacific. We'll be live here on YouTube. Me, Alicia, and Chris Trevino from USCfootball.com. So we'll see you then. It should be a good show. And tell your friends. We'll see you next time. See ya.
See ya.
See ya. Bye.